Hello, my name is Charis and this is my theory project, final project. So I chose Après un rêve by Fauré to analyze, and this is the piano vocal score. And I guess I'll just take you through it. First, we start off with a pretty heavy, or steady, D minor chord, and then we immediately get a little crunchy with a passing note that comes out of this tonic chord. And then we start getting into the applied chords almost immediately. And here we have a ninth chord, which pertains to our course with romantic chords and jazzy kind of chords too. And that just goes to a 7. And here I find there's a motion of 5, of 5, of 5, of 5, of 2. And how I kind of confirmed this to myself is that these are all, sorry, I'm holding this kind of strangely, but basically these are all kind of dominant 7th chords. And so they keep resolving to the next dominant 7th chord. And in that way, that's how I, even though there weren't always extra accidentals, the fact that it was either a 9th or a dominant 7th made it feel like it was a 5 chord and not anything else. And I think this helps with this, well, rêve, it means dream in French, and in the beginning of the poetry, the protagonist is explaining his dream of him like reminiscing about his love, and I think that these applied chords helps and dominant chords, or 9th chords really, the crunchy chords, helps really show this kind of ambiguous, dreamy kind of mood, kind of not deciding if it's like happy or sad yet either. And I think that really helps with this dream kind of feeling, and also the melody above that helps. And furthermore, to kind of help, as Solomon always says, the augmented chord has this kind of outer space feel, and this applied section ends with an augmented chord, and that kind of solidifies that like dreamscape kind of feel. I'm just going to quickly play this progression and kind of hum the melody on top of that. Just very blocky. So we have helps with the dreamscape sound. Also, we have just, I guess, to show the chords that I've learned in class that I was able to apply to here, we have a 9 moving to a flat 9 and a sharp 5. And yeah, it's kind of cool because you kind of have all these chords. I had to write this out, and you kind of have all these letter names that come out of nowhere, but then you can put them together with these suspensions. Yeah, we have, yeah, and this kind of section repeats, so I won't go over this again when it shows up again in the melody, but basically this melody and chord progression repeats itself in a strophic way until there's a climax. Everything changes in the middle of the poem. Yeah, and as you notice, the accompaniment is very like blocky chords, crunchy, and then the melody kind of floats up and down above that, which again helps with the romance feel, but also the like a little bit of an ambiguous mood and dreamy, floaty kind of feel. Also, I found that this 2-5-2 movement over a 5 pedal also added to this sound, because 2 is like the 5 of 5, but it's in the minor form because it's following the key signature of D major, if that makes sense. And so that also just kind of, it makes it hard to know where home is, which I guess the French were very well known for. Here we have this little applied section. I know that it's a little bit unconventional to have like a 4 applied, but then there was a 7 applied in that. Just kind of helped confirm that it would resolve and that it was an applied section, not a modulation. But there is a modulation here. I just found like this part had to be a modulation because it was of F, which is the 3 of 1, and since 3 doesn't show up that often, and then it started getting like quite connected to 3, like we have a 2 half diminished mixture chord of 3 and also 5/7 of 3, and then yeah, so it just started to get like really connected to the F major scale, and I thought that because 3 is not that common of a chord, it'd have to be a modulation. And then it has a cadence here and I did end up having to use the 3 to modulate back to D minor. And then this progression of like the applied of the applied of the applied repeats itself. And then we get to the climax, and that's where the repetition ends and we shift to G minor. And I find that there wasn't really an actual modulation because all of a sudden an E flat just appears and then the F sharps start appearing. And it wouldn't make sense, like, because 1 doesn't, like 1 of D minor doesn't transition well unless you use a minor 5, which isn't that conventional. So I just kind of made it like a full switch. We start getting some passing 6/4 chords. Here I have a 6/7 chord, which I know is unconventional, but I think that it didn't really resolve anywhere, and it's romantic music, so I think like this kind of major 7 feel isn't that unconventional for the sound. And this is like a full sad mood now because the dream is, I guess, broken, and so there's a lot of kind of major and minor 7s, which make just a more weighty, less resolving kind of feel. Because we have, and here we have a pedal, and we have a 2/6/5. I modulated to B flat major for like just 2 measures, which I know is strange, but there wasn't an F sharp, and B flat is the relative major of G minor, so I thought it would make sense. And then I quickly resolved back to G minor. Yeah, and then we go back to D minor, and we kind of follow this pretty basic sound. I try to avoid using the 3s, but I do think that this is what that is. We have some diminished chords, some passing chords, and then we end off again with this steady tonic sound. Yeah, I don't know. I found that throughout the piece, as the story of the character becomes more complex and more sad, I guess, and more awake, there's more suspensions and appoggiaturas in the chords, which I think just creates more texture and movement and complexity as the character becomes more complex and as we know more about the story. And also, every time there's a triplet in the melody, which is quite a bit, there's almost always a passing note. So that's just kind of a repetitive sound and texture. And yeah, I think that's what I discovered. Thank you.